Okay, so now we're going to move on and how to create the structure for our HTML page. You'll first build the HTML structure for the page using the Insert panel, which generates the necessary code automatically. Although Dreamweaver creates the code on your behalf, it's important to understand the HTML structure that is being created to ensure elements are correctly nested. So we're going to go through this step by step. After building the basic structure, you will then add the text, images, and links to the page. So this little YouTube video is going to just be creating the basic structure. So what you first need to do before you start anything, and this is what you did with your project, is the first step in creating a website is to create numerous thumbnail sketches. And I sometimes create, believe it or not, 50 to 100 thumbnail sketches before I even think about creating larger roughs. So I take my best sketches, I go with my client, and we decide which ones should be created in roughs. And then I will take these and I would create what you call mock-ups, but actually they would be done on paper before I even go to Fireworks, Photoshop, or Illustrator. So I would do the roughs first, and then from that, the client will then pick out which set of roughs they want me to create mock-ups. And then I go to the computer. Then once I get finished doing this, I go to the computer and I create them most likely in Fireworks. I find Fireworks is the easiest program to work with. So you created the same thing last week, and you're going to take your mock-up, which is what we're doing on this project right here. We're taking this mock-up and you're going to create this as an HTML in Dreamweaver. The first week of class, you are asked to create a mock-up for your homepage of your chosen newspaper site. So this exercise, you will open up the mock-up homepage, and we create it for Bayside Beat and examine the contents. You will transform the mock-up into a working HTML page. After this, you will start to add styles to this homepage, and much the same way you would design your own homepage for your newspaper site. So just take a close look at this mock-up, and we're going to just go right here. We already created the page, so we don't have to create that again. But there is something that I do want to show you and explain with you. Okay? So once you create the page, and you're going to call it homepage, which we already did in the previous file, we're going to start building the HTML structure. So web pages are built using HTML, which defines the structure of the content. One of the basic building blocks, and I talked about this in the other YouTube videos and also in your class, one of the basic building blocks of a web page layout is the div tag. Now we're going to forget about using tables. We don't use tables to design a website. You are going to be a professional web designer, so you need to learn how to do a web page from scratch. No templates, just do this whole thing by scratch. No tables, no templates. And this, you're going to try to keep your site simple, and this would be a lot easier for you to work your way through this class the next 5 weeks. So the very first thing is acts like a container. We're going to build a container for our site in which the text, images, and other page elements are grouping them together so they can be styled in a consistent way. So HTML5 adds new tags. So we have new tags, which is in the new Cloud Dreamweaver. The new tags perform the same function as a div. The difference is they are also specified to the role of the element on the page. So most HTML tags have opening and closing tags with the name of the element between angle brackets. So we went through this last week when we did HTML, and as a review. The closing tag has a / before the element name. So just like the div, you have the opening div tag, and then you have the / for the closing div tag. So you use CSS to position these grouping elements by adding horizontal and vertical space around them, margins, or inside them, paddings. We also did this and went through this last week, and this is just basically a review. So CSS also used to change the color of text background, add drop shadows, rounded corner, as well as other artistic effects. So you remember what I told you, that CSS really allows you to design the page exactly the way you want. So take a look at this page right here that I have opened up. The page is divided into distinct sections, as you can see here. So this whole thing that goes around this page is the very first thing you're going to create or any website that you do, you need to create some sort of outer wrapper, something that's going to contain and hold all your elements. Keep the whole page together, the center it in the browser. Everything needs to be inside an outer wrapper. These sections also correspond to separate grouping elements that act as containers for the content inside them. Now, if you take a real close look at this page, you will see that we have the header, and inside the header, we have the navigational bar, and we also have the logo. And then we have the image, this large image. Inside this image, we have an article. We're going to create this whole thing. And then if we go further down on the page, we see the main article, which is on the left side, and then the sidebar, which is on the right side. And at the very bottom, we see the footer. So we're going to create this step by step by using divs. So I'm actually going to close this up right now. You may want to leave this open as a reference, but I'm going to close this up right now. I'm going to go back to my file. But before I get started here and show you how to do this, I just want to show you a little bit the difference between CS6 and Cloud. So let's go open up Adobe Cloud, which I have right here. Okay, and here's the page that I'm working with. I'm going to move this up. And this is the page that we created, and you noticed haven't put anything on the page yet, and it's already assigned that everything is going to go in between the opening and the closing body tag. Now if I go up to Windows and I select Insert, now Insert will automatically go up to the top for me because I have assigned that that's where I want it. I can pull it out. Let me just pull it out to show you. Okay, if you open it up and it looks like this, you can change your to structure, to media, to form. This way I prefer having it up on top. You know, everybody does it a little differently. There we go. Now hover over it, and there we go. So this is the way I like to have my insert panel. Everybody likes it a little differently. You notice there's a common up here. If you go straight across, you can see that there are what all the different elements are. The structure is what we're going to be working with. And if you just kind of scroll through and see what each one is, media, you can see it has all different kinds of media forms. You just have to go through each one. jQuery templates, which we're not going to really work on in this class. Okay, so the major one that we're going to first work on is structure. But before I continue on here, let me just show you Dreamweaver 6. Okay, so you notice that in Dreamweaver 6, if you compare the two, you do not have a structure. So you have common, and then you have layout. You actually have insert div tag here. But Dreamweaver 6 is very strong with spray bars. You actually have a whole spray bar set panel that is not in Cloud. Now I will give you the spray bar navigational bar if you want to use that. You can put it into Cloud, but you have to pay for it extra. It's like an extra add-on. But for the purpose of the HTML5, Dreamweaver felt that the spray bar was not necessary to put in. But you do have the layout, and you can put your div here. You can do pretty much exactly the same as you do in Cloud. It's just set up just slightly different. I'm just going to close this up. Okay, so if we go through our page, I like working in split view. You can do this any way you want. It just helps me to be able to follow my HTML document a little bit easier. And like I said, I like to put my panel up here, my insert panel up on the top, because it's just easier for me to go through. Everybody has different ways of doing things. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my wrapper, and I'm going to select div. So if I'm just going to go right straight across here, and I'm going to find where it says div, and it's the very first one right up on the top here. It's a little bit different than in CS6, so sometimes it takes me a little bit to find things too, because I'm used to working with CS6. So I'm going to select div, and Now, follow along in the paper and it'll make it really easy for you to know what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to put in wrapper where it says ID. Remember we went through this last week, class and ID, what the difference between the two. So I'm going to write in wrapper. I'm going to check and make sure that I did this correctly before I say OK. I'm just going to select OK. And you notice that it automatically goes up into my page and it puts text in for you. But I'm going to get rid of this text. So this is called placeholder text. It's automatically selected when you place in a div. So I'm just going to go in and just delete this text. You can delete it here. And you notice your div is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's still sitting there. I've just deleted the text. If I select it here, you'll see that it has gone away. So now I'm going to insert my header. In the insert panel, it's like the fifth one going across. In the structure, let's just find the header. Here it is. And I'm going to select header. Now it says in insertion point, I still have it inside the wrapper. I did not move it out of the wrapper. I'm going to keep it there because that's where I want it to be. And I'm going to select top. I'm going to call the ID top. I'm going to keep everything lowercase. I like to keep everything as simple as possible. And then I'm going to hit OK. Now you see the text is up there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this text and I'm just going to type in my logo. Now you're probably going to want to create your logo a little bit differently, but for the simplicity of this page, I'm just going to write it in. Okay, and you notice that it's going to change over here. So I'm going to change this base IB into a heading 1, which is actually pretty easy to do. Now make sure you have your properties panel open if you don't already have it open, and make sure you have HTML selected. So very simple and easy to do. All I have to do is select my text. I haven't put any styles yet on my page. I'm going to select my text and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select heading 1 where it says format heading 1, and there we go. So now I'm going to save my page. I'm going to keep saving my page so I don't lose what I've done. And you'll notice that over in the code side you'll see the H1 base side beat, and you can also see it by going over onto the design side. So far so good. So now I'm going to insert my main nav. I'm going to insert my navigational bar. I'm going to insert it after H1. Make sure that you select after H1. Don't select inside where the text is. Don't select on top. Select after H1. And then I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to find where it says nav. You have to just go across and try to find it. There it is, right there. I'm going to select navigation, and this is going to be for my navigational bar. So it's going to pop up and I'm going to insert before end of tag. And just follow along in the paper, and I have everything all set for you. It's all written in. If you follow along with the PDF file, it'll just make it really easy for you. So where it says after tag, we're going to select before end of tag, and that's right down here. And the tag, you're going to have to go down and find the tag. Tag is going to be the header ID top, and that's right here. It's the bottom one. So it's before end of tag, header ID top, and the ID is going to be main nav. You can call it anything you want, but for simplicity I'm just going to keep everything as simple as possible. And then I'm going to select OK. Just hit OK. Alright, so now I've hit this text. Sometimes this is a little hard to do. I'm going to actually make this into an unordered list. I'm going to get rid of this text right here. I'm going to select unordered list up on the top, and I'm going to write home, and you'll notice that it changes. And then after home, I'm going to write sightseeing. And then after sightseeing, I'm going to write eating out. And then after eating out, I'm going to write what's on. And the last one that I'm going to write is where to stay. Okay, so far I have my header, I have my outer wrapper, and I just set up my navigation. So nothing looks like anything yet because we haven't put any styles on it yet. So I'm just going to file and I'm going to save so I don't lose what I have. So now I'm going to insert an image. A large image is called a hero image. So I'm going to insert a large image at the top. If you look back on your, let me just go out for 1 minute here. If you go back to your image, and you can see so far we have our logo that we put up on top. We have our navigational bar. We haven't put any styles on it. And now I'm going to make a an element for my large image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to select just div. Go back to the file. Let me bring this back up again so you can see it. I'm just going to select div right up on the top here. Okay, now you have to really be careful how you place all this stuff. You know, it's a lot to think about. You know, when you're working on your own file, you have to think about how you're placing your items inside your items. So I'm going to place it after tag because I want it to go after my header ID tag. So I'm going to select after tag down here, and then where it says going right over here, and I'm going to select after header ID top. And that's the middle one right here, header ID top. And I'm going to call this just simply ID hero. By creating these IDs, I can create a cascading style on all this file, on all these separate IDs that I have placed into this file. So you just want to double check and make sure everything is okay before you decide to leave. So I'm just going to hit OK. Alright, so now you see it automatically puts text in. So what we're going to do is we're going to, this is a little tricky, so you have to listen very carefully, is I'm going to eliminate this text, just so. And you'll see it looks like it's disappeared, but it really hasn't. It's still there. So make sure you have the HTML side open up, the code side, that you can find it. Okay, so now I'm just going to click article. I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to select article. You have to find it. Go straight through until you find it. There's article. Okay, so I'm going to put this right at the insertion point, and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to leave it right inside. I'm not going to put any kind of ID or anything in there. All I'm going to do is just hit OK. And then hit OK. So it says contents for article goes here. I'm going to click article again. Go up to the top and click article again. So this next article needs to go after the hero div. So I'm just going to go after tag, select after tag, which is down here, and it's going to be the hero div. So you're going to select that div ID hero. I think you're starting to get the idea of what we're doing here. Now this is going to be my main. Okay, so this is going to be the main side, which is on the left side. If I look back on my image, let's just open up the image real quick. And this is going to be over here, the main side, okay? I just check and make sure I have this done correctly. So it should be div ID equals hero. Just double check it, after tag, main, and then hit OK. So next I'm going to create my next column, which is going to be a side, and that's going to be this section over here. So we're going to go up to the top, and you'll notice that the difference on Cloud is Cloud actually has a whole set of divs that you can put in that is not in CS6. CS6 you can just place in divs and you have to actually name them. So we're going to select a side right here. So this is telling this file that this column is going to be aside the previous column. So let's just select this. Okay, so I'm going to choose after tag again, down to the bottom, and I have to place in the correct after tag, and the after tag is going to be article ID main. So it's going to be after the article main that we just did, and I'm going to call this sidebar. And then I'm going to hit OK. So far we, getting our page all set up. Actually, all we're doing is just basically designing the structure. And the last thing we have to do, the very last thing on this page, is just put in the footer. And if I go up on the top, I'm going to find footer. I'm going to select footer. And this is also going to be an after tag. So I'm going to after tag, and the tag that it's going to be after is the last one we placed in, which is a side ID sidebar tag. And I'm going to give it an ID footer. I want to give it an ID because I might want to create some styles to it. If you don't give it an ID, then you can't create any styles. So then I'm going to hit OK. So far we have the whole structure. So just look back on the page. Just look and make sure that you did it all correctly. Let me just open this up a little bit. Okay, so just go through and check this and make sure it looks like it does on the page. So we have our div, we have our opening wrapper div right up here up on the top, and then the closing div down the bottom. And you notice that everything falls between the body tag. Very important. Okay. If you go down, you'll see the nav, ID main nav, then we see our unordered list, then we see our header, and then the div hero, and that has a closing tag, so looks like we've set everything up correctly. Then we have article, the aside, footer, and it looks like this is done correct. So we have all the elements that we need to start working on this page. And I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to start placing in our elements. We still haven't done any styles yet. We still have to place in our elements, but the most important thing is to get the structure in correctly. So I'm going to file and save what I have. And keep saving, it's very important. And then we're going to stop here, and in the next tutorial I'm going to show you how to put in the content.